Number 6 in the name of Deputy Clare Daly.
Thanks, Corla. Minister, essentially this is the same matter as raised by Deputy Wallace, and I'd like to compliment you indeed on your consistency in your answer, because you've demonstrated again a total lack of humanity and compassion in your retort earlier. And what you call overholders and anachronisms are in fact families who've given loyal service to you and the state, and you as their employer in the Department of Defence, in my opinion, have a duty of care to them. So I want to know what alternative arrangements you have for those families and individuals who have not sufficient income to get a mortgage or rent privately, and who are not being taken on by the local authorities and being made homeless by you.
Minister.
Not only does the Deputy have no monopoly on compassion, she also has the same tendency as her colleague sitting beside her to be selective with the facts and background of issues. As I mentioned earlier, in February 1997, the then Minister for Defence set out policy on married quarters on the basis that they were largely an anachronism and they should be discontinued in a managed and orderly way. Since then, my department has discontinued the practice of providing such accommodation. In addition, given the age of the housing stock, it has been found that over time the properties require a significant disproportionate investment in order to ensure compliance with regulations regarding rental properties. Personnel are obliged under Defence Force regulations to vacate married quarters within a specified period of being discharged from the permanent Defence Force, something that the Deputy chooses entirely to ignore. The term overholder is used to describe former members of the Defence Forces and their families who refuse to leave married quarters within 21 days of leaving the Defence Forces. My department is, in accordance with normal procedure, seeking vacant possession of overheld married quarters. The situation of overholders continuing to occupy married quarters is simply not sustainable. As my department is no longer in a position to subsidise housing for those who are not entitled to them, the department has had to take necessary action. Each overholder is being dealt with on an individual basis, as evidenced in the statistics that I gave Deputy Wallace. My department does not have a role in the provision of housing accommodation for the general public. The securing of alternative housing is a matter for the individuals concerned in the first instance. If individuals are not in a position to secure housing in their own right, it may be the case that they qualify for social housing or that they qualify for some level of housing assistance. The officials of my department have met with Kildare County Council officials regarding overholders, so they are aware of the situation and will advise overholders of procedures and requirements when making applications for social housing.
Deputy Daly, 1 minute. Thank you.
See, the problem is that the Minister has said that he's taking an approach of reminding these people of their responsibilities, but what we're talking about here are families who've lived in this area for absolute decades. Families like one individual who's been living in the Curragh camp for 34 years, given 44 years service to the Army, retired 2 years ago, got a letter 4 months after he retired telling him to vacate the premises, has been to Kildare County Council and told he is over the limit for social housing, has been to the bank and told he doesn't have enough money and he's too old to get a mortgage. This family is one example of others who've nowhere else to go. Now, Minister, you said that there were less than 75 families nationally in this situation. Some of them are widows, separated people in very low-paid temporary employment. Can you not engage humanely with 75 people? You claim that the maintenance of this stock has been onerous on your department. Where's the cost-benefit analysis conducted into that? These people pay substantial amounts of rent, and indeed when they retire from the forces they pay more rent.
I'll let you back
so
in.
How much are you spending on the maintenance of their premises? Because they're giving you quite a lot of rent, and I don't think that it actually costs you anything.
Minister, thank you. 1 minute. Thank you.
As I've already indicated to the Deputy, my department does not have a role in the provision of housing accommodation for the general public. However, my department does deal with each case on its own merits. Officials in my department, as I've already said, have been in contact with the local authorities and information on the appropriate state agencies to provide assistance is given to those overholders as part of the department's engagement with them. The department wasn't dealing with this matter in a humane and considered way. Some of the individuals referred to by the Deputy who have been maintaining occupation of accommodation they knew they had an obligation to vacate would have been required long ago to vacate it. I accept that this is a difficult issue for some families. It is an issue that the Department has sought to deal with over a series of years through the presence of successive Ministers for Defence in a manner that is as careful as is possible. But at the end of the day, this was accommodation only provided to be made available to families during the term of a member being a member of the Defence Forces.
Deputy Daly,
I would contend that that wasn't the knowledge of all people, and in fact the conduct of the Defence Forces would vindicate that. If you take one individual who has exited from the forces over 15 years ago, lived in his home for 40 years, and if you like, only now being squeezed, even though he lives there with 3 generations of his family. You may not be a housing authority, but you do have a duty of care to former employees and their families. And in actual fact, the individual and humane approach you've been taking has involved one woman who's lived there for 27 years, raised her family there, living there post a marriage breakup, been given 4 and 5 harassment letters and been brought before the courts to be evicted. I'm asking you again, how much are you claiming that this is costing your department to keep these people here? Because my assertion is they've actually paid for that through their own rent, for the upkeep and maintenance, and really, where is the drain coming from you? And could you not engage humanely with them in that they've lived there for decades, raised their families, and have they not got the right now in older years of their life to live that out, or for you to actively assist them in gaining an alternative?